Welcome to week 6, show 11 of the 2023 regular season, live from Hickory Street, right on the beautiful Denton Square. This is the DenCo Gridiron Show. Here we are, Lee. What's happening, man?
A little bit of this, a little bit of that.
All the things. All the generic things, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I never know how to answer that question.
I don't either. It's just like, I'm just living the
it's
dream, or just
all I
living.
got.
Yeah. What's up, everybody? The DenCo Gridiron Show. We are here, pre-game, pre-week, whatever you want to call it, show here on Wednesdays that we usually have. Stephen Peters, managing editor of the DenCo Gridiron platform. We've got Lee Livingston, as usual, to my right, your left. He is our video extraordinary editor. Man, those videos you are cutting up and putting out for whether it's Khalil Smith or Sean Oliver or Braxton / Kristen Trickett over there in Panther Creek. It's fantastic work, man.
I appreciate it. Try to put a little bit of effort into it and stuff. And obviously,
I'm glad you're putting in effort.
Oh yeah, it's just I put in a little bit.
A little bit.
I don't want to try too hard.
There you go. Yeah, you don't want to show those potential employers that you're a go-getter.
Yeah,
you're quiet quitting before you even start. I love it.
Just yeah. So if you're an employer, just know I will give you minimum effort.
There you go. Love it.
It's just I'm gonna put that in my portfolio. I'm working on that later today.
Put that right in
I'm
your
gonna
headline.
cut this specific part out right there.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're a player in a game and you're like, hey, I think DenCo Gridiron was at the game, just always feel free to shoot me a message and I will try to cut something up for you guys. And I gotta still finish up cutting up some stuff from the Colony and Ryan and try to get a few more clips out from the Louisville game because man, those guys appreciate all the players for doing cool stuff because you guys make it fun to like.
they sure do love yapping at the camera.
I love it. It's
especially
the best.
After the game.
I think it was Jalen Hardy who had a great touchdown in the corner that he caught from Ethan Terrell that I cannot wait to go finish up editing because came right by the camera, gave me a nice point, and I was like, yes, this is perfect.
They
loved it.
If these kids were in the NFL, they would just eat up all the camera work that they could. It's fun
awesome
to watch the exuberance of the players whenever they see a camera and they start pointing at it, or after the game, they're all just kind of like chirping and throwing up their whatever signs, It's hilarious and also just enjoyable as well. It can be funny to watch and funny to appreciate as well at the same time.
Oh, it's amazing.
So yeah, if we're ever at your game, which we will be this week, 2 of them. We'll talk about those here in a little bit. But if you're ever at the game, you see us, you wanted to say hi, we appreciate that. Shout out to Nathan Terrell over at Louisville for stopping me after the game. I talked about that on Saturday. We've had Mr. Roberts for Panther Creek. He's stopped you before a game to say what's up. We appreciate it. But like you said, if you're a player and you think we have a clip of you, hit up Lee on social. That's Lee Livingston 13, right?
Yep.
Same thing with me. If you want details about whatever, you can hit me up at I Am Speeders, or you can also hit us up at DenCoGridiron.com or DenCo Gridiron. That's on Twizzlers or X, whatever you call it.
Also on Instagram as well, and Facebook. There's a couple other places you can find our stuff. That's usually where our main videos are going to be, but then our other handles are also attached to that as well. So.
Yeah, and if you're watching live right now, you can also interact with us on Facebook. You can send us
I got the comments and stuff right here. So if you are ever watching us live, feel free to just kind of interact. I got it all pulled up right here. So
yeah, there's I think we're live on Twitter as well, and then YouTube. So hit us up on the comments there, wherever you want to. If you're watching after the fact, just tell us where we messed up. Tell us what we're doing great, what we're not doing great, what you want to see more of. Well, you can also email us anonymously at info@dencogridiron.com. So yeah, there's all the prefacing and preambles to our show. Let's get into some news and notes, my friend.
I don't know if you saw the screen there, but I did. And that's correct. That was Taylor Swift on your screen because that's the most important news of the week. If you're not keeping up with, if you're just not a part of society, Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce are together. That's a thing. And that just had to be part of the news segment because I'm happy and everyone else is happy because, you know, who's not happy for Kelce? It's football and Taylor Swift. Like, you know, it's amazing. So that's the end of my little.
I'm already kind of exhausted by the trailer of that power couple. I mean, cool, good for Travis Kelce. Are you a Swiftie?
Not really. I've never.
I know we talked about music prior to that calling game.
I listened to her entire Taylor's version of Red after I saw that she was at the Chiefs game, just because. But no, I've never really listened to any Taylor Swift.
Okay, I'm just curious. I mean, you put it up there, so I figured maybe
I thought it would just be
Swiftie
hilarious because it was. That's a great news segment.
Yeah, I saw a little clip of Micah Parsons on his new podcast talking about that being the big news of the week is Taylor Swift being at the Chiefs game and everything. Yeah. I don't really want to spend too much more time on that. I think do
for all the high school players, just remember your dreams can come true.
Yes, you too can marry a billionaire and play football. All right, so some news and notes are kind of similar as they have always been. We've got some players of the week to re-announce or talk about. We dropped this on the website Monday. Our offensive and defensive players of the week. So offensive, we had Ethan Terrell for Louisville, Caden Collins, who put up a huge game for Prestonwood down in Cornerstone. We would have shouted his name out on Saturday, but I did not see the stats until afterward. Was it 305 yards or something like that? Something sick. Josiah Martin, wide receiver for Geyer, and Dane Parlin for Marcus. Again, leading that comeback win for Marcus when, you know, everything could have just, you know, been packed in mentally and just played the game out. They came back and found a way to win. On the defensive side, we have Randall Sostek for Aubrey, the linebacker there. Jackson Lee, who had the not game clinching, but essentially allowed the Lone Star offense to have one more possession to steal that win. So he had the game, I guess, not game winning, but game winning leading to forced fumble for Lone Star. Jaden Rogers, I know he wasn't the high man on tackles or sacks, and apparently my eyeballs were wrong because I thought he had all the sacks and pressures and everything, but he had the game winning sack on TJ Hobbs last week against Ryan. So shout out to Jaden from the Colony, and then Sean Oliver, who we had a nice little video from you. I mentioned that earlier, but I'm gonna mention it again. Playing with a heavy heart that week. I'm not gonna get into that situation, but he was gracious enough to talk to us afterward and had a monster game for Louisville as they downed Flower Mound. And then we got some teams on a bye this week, 4 of them to be exact. So out of our 28, only 24 are playing this week. We have Byron Nelson, who is 5-0. Wakeland, who is kind of, you know, licking their wounds a little bit right now after getting off to such a hot start. Crum is off, as well as Argyle, who has been playing phenomenally the last 2 weeks. All right, Lee. Got some trivia time. We're going to play a guessing game. It's going to be a little bit different. Not on who is undefeated this week, because I want to kind of keep it fresh and throw you a curveball. Which team this week do you believe has the greatest odds to win? Out of you can look on the schedule.
I'm double checking the schedule because I know that I got to double check it just to have it all up.
Sure.
So of our DenCo Gridiron teams.
Yes, of all. Right, yeah, so we have 24 playing. There are 22 games, I believe.
Because that changes my answer. I'm gonna say, I believe it's gonna be Lake Dallas.
Lake Dallas. If only I knew what these buttons were, I would hit the button.
Well, we don't have an button.
We're gonna get one. I'm gonna load the memory card this coming week, and we'll get that out.
Not Lake Dallas.
It's not Lake Dallas. I'll give you one more guess because you have a 1 in 22 chance, and that's not really high.
Surprise! Well, no, that's not. They're not a DenCo Gridiron team.
Who?
I'm gonna say Lone Star. Actually,
Lone Star.
I'm gonna say Lone Star over Liberty. I feel like that was
all right. The team with the greatest odds, according to Massey Ratings. This is where we pull all our information, so we don't just make this stuff up. We have a source that we use called Massey Ratings that provide us our who's favored by how much, what their percentage of win probability are, and the over under. That team in which we speak, and you guessed incorrectly twice, is Denton Ryan against South Hills on Thursday.
I thought about saying that was my first thought was Denton Ryan, and I just like there's no way that they're the biggest favorite anymore.
According to Massey Ratings for this week, they have a 100% chance of beating.
Oh my gosh!
and if you know anything about math models and statistics, there is literally no chance that you have 100% before something happens. It could be 99.9, but it definitely, like, even ESPN's little FPI, that little graphic that they have on their website, never shows 100 until the game is over. So
let's go ask the Colony what they think of Massey Ratings.
Exactly. Like, I mean, we have definitely questioned their models and their numbers, and again, they do like almost every state, I think. So it's just a computer-based algorithm that's.
I think it's fun. I think it's fun to have
for sure.
It's fun to have, but there's questions to it. Like I think, like I remember week 1, it thought Denton was this big favorite over Newman Smith, and like you and I talked week 1, it's like Newman Smith was bringing back a lot of their really talent. Their bet like. They had lost players, but they also were bringing back their most talented players. It was their coach's second year.
Yeah.
And Newman Smith so far has had a pretty good season. So it was like,
yeah,
it was such a bizarre thing. Like, why were they such big favorites? Even if Denton High had let's say Denton High was having a really good season. It's like, it doesn't make sense for them to be such massive favorites.
Yeah, 100%.
Like
you mentioned Denton, and they're playing Independence this week. Do you want to know what that spread is based off of? This is not a trivia question.
I feel like it's got to be a little bit tighter because Independence hasn't had the best season. If I'm not mistaken, right?
But according to numbers that aren't ours, we just show them. They are 20.5 underdogs to Independence this week.
I would not have thought that at the beginning of the
season.
All right.
So we're going to, trivia game part 2. We're going to give you a second chance. All right. So we did the highest. Where do you think we're going now?
We're going to go down to the bottom.
Who has the lowest odds to win this week? And I'll give you
I think I know that one. It's going to be Pilot Point.
Sorry, to win.
Lowest chances to win.
So they're favored to win. Sorry, I didn't preface that right. They're favored to win, but it has the lowest odds to win.
Apologies, Pilot Point.
No, that's just the lowest odds of the game. Yes.
I thought we were flipping it.
Not that far. Sorry.
Like, what game's going to be the tightest, essentially?
Essentially, what's going to be the tightest, and what team is favored to win?
Well, we talked about this off air. Liberty Christian is probably going to be. I think they probably have higher odds than what I think initially. So I want to say Frisco Legacy, Liberty Christian is going to be a tight game. I think it's going to be a tight game, but I think Liberty probably has higher odds to win than it's probably not the tight. Massey Ratings isn't gonna, they're not going to make it the tightest game.
No, they would be tied for second highest chance of winning at 99% with Lone Star.
That's bizarre.
So
that's insane.
Oh, is that your guess?
No, that wasn't my guess.
Sorry.
No. I was walking through my
got it.
Process.
I like it.
I think. I'm thinking Panther Creek and Hutchins is going to be is on that list. That's a decent one. Louisville Coppell could be pretty tight in terms of odds. I think it's probably something weird. So I'm gonna say St. Pius and Ponder. I thought Ponder was going to have like a.
No, actually, St. Pius is projected to win by 9.5 according to Massey Ratings. So we'll give you one more guess.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and take my lean with it. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go Louisville. I think they're going to probably a 4.5 point favorite, touchdown favorite.
No. That's a 13-point spread for Louisville with the probability of 71% chance of winning. So, dang. All right. So this was a terrible trivia game for you. We'll be better next week. Marcus and Flower Mound is the closest one. Marcus is a 3.5 point favorite.
Oh,
yeah. And they have the probability is 54%.
After you said Marcus and Flower Mound, I was like, oh, that actually made sense. I figured Flower Mound might be like a 4.5 point or like 3 point.
Well, remember, Marcus was favored last week too. We were like, really? they haven't shown anything, and they somehow won. So
yeah, I just figured Flower Mound would have been favored, but it makes sense to me that that's a tight spread. Especially after you pointed out, you bring up the game. That game's always tight. Rivalry games, especially in 6-6A.
Yeah, the Battle of the Mound.
The Battle of the Mound's always a close game. I mean, it wasn't that long ago, or it was 2 years ago that I went to my first Battle of the Mound, and Flower Mound and Marcus, it was back and forth. Flower Mound came from behind, I think, by about 10 points in the fourth quarter. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. But Nick Evers led that team to a big win. It was at Marcus, and I mean, that stadium was packed, and that was the first time where I was like, okay, like these smaller stadiums, it felt like it did affect the game. And I felt like when Louisville came to town for the Battle of the Axe, Marcus was able to cause a few penalties. Like that crowd, like those crosstown rivalries in 6-6A, especially, it stands out to me. Like, those home fields, they can actually like cause a little bit of a ruckus and cause some havoc for the other team if they show up. Those fans show up. So,
yeah, no, you said it perfectly. The rivalry games are something different. The Battle of the Mound, since Flower Mound's inception, has always been hotly contested. There have been some blowouts here and there. Don't get me wrong. Marcus had some great teams. Flower Mound had some great teams, and they put it on each other. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Shout out to JD Hutton on Twitter, by the way. He told us to tell you to be sure to include the big O-line guys from Louisville in your video. So,
oh, he did. Okay,
he did. Yeah.
I'll make sure.
I mean, they only have like 17 5-star NFL linemen on their roster. I mean, it is a stacked unit for sure.
I probably should get more video of O-line guys, but that's just not where all the touchdowns happen. I love the O-line guys, but
yeah, I hear you.
I should get more video of those guys. That's a good point.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, man. So let's break down some games, shall we?
Yeah, I'm down. It's time to get into it.
I feel like there needs to be something that kind of closes that, as opposed to just a hard stop. It's like, and it just lays out.
There should be. I need to actually like put that in my editing software instead of just doing it and like some. I just did that. Like I just threw it together in some like janky online stuff.
That's fine, man. All right, so we got some favorite games to talk about. One is the game we will be at on Thursday night, pending credential approval, which we won't find out about until tomorrow, which is always a bit worrisome. So Frisco ISD. If you're wondering why people probably follow up to make sure our credentials are good, we want to know maybe a little bit ahead of time so we can make plans accordingly. Anywho, that would be Wilmer Hutchins, undefeated Wilmer Hutchins, against 4-1 Panther Creek. Both teams 1-0 in district play. This one's at 7:00 on Thursday. It is at, I've been going back and forth. I've noticed myself saying this stadium's name back and forth. I'm pretty sure it's Kirkendall. It's spelled like Kukendall, Kuy, then Kindle. So, but I'm pretty sure it's Kirkendall Stadium, formerly known as Memorial Stadium over in Frisco. So this is our Thursday game that we're going to be at. Hutchins won this game by 7 last year. So, quite a different, I guess, expectation heading into this one. Panther Creek is heavily favored. And I think the biggest reason why is because Panther Creek didn't have Braxton Roberts last year. He had to sit out. I'm not sure exactly why. I think he said something about a transfer.
So there was a transfer rule and he couldn't play last year. That was the reason.
Okay. Perfect. So, him being on the team now and playing, I think is going to be a huge X factor for Panther Creek in district play overall. You still have Salina. You still have Carter, who are going to be some tough teams. But in this one, I think Braxton is going to be a huge X factor as to why Panther Creek is probably so heavily favored. And I think it'll be an exciting game. I've never seen Wilmer Hutchins play. I know I have some some cohorts or whatever out there who will go down to the Hutch and watch them play, or they'll watch. I don't think they play in the Sock Bowl, South Oak Cliff Bowl, or Super Bowl, I think is what it's called.
I thought the place where South Oak Cliff played wasn't that.
That's Kincaid.
That's what I was gonna say. I thought that was Kincaid.
But they have their own stadium. It's called Hutchins Stadium, and it's called the Hutch.
Okay.
Whatever. So I've never been down there to watch them. So I'll be excited to see a DISD team outside of SOC play. So yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts on this game?
So initially for me, my thoughts kind of stand out. We've seen Panther Creek play. We've been keeping up with them, obviously, kind of throughout the year. So it's like, okay, well, why don't I go take a look at this, Hutchins team? Because I don't really know anything about them. But what stood out immediately was this is a team led by Jacob Cummings in that rushing attack. Kind of, they're going to hand the ball off just based off the box score, and they've played really well all year. They've kind of beaten everyone that obviously they're undefeated. They've beaten everyone they've played. They've kind of beaten everyone soundly for the most part. I think they had 1 or 2 close games.
Yep.
So I'm trying to remember what they were, but I've got the stat sheet pulled up in front of me, not the scores.
Yeah.
But Tomaje McMillan, hopefully I'm pronouncing that first name correct. 62% passing, almost 1,000 yards on the year, 10 touchdowns, 1 interception. That is to me, that's like amazing when you have this kind of rushing attack that Hutchins seems to have, and he's not afraid to kind of spread the ball out to. He's got about 3 receivers where right around 11 and 9 receptions each. So they have a passing attack that pairs really well with this rushing game. It's efficient. It works. It's not going to be a turnover. This is not going to be a turnover heavy team. It's clean. It's efficient football. So this Hutchins team, I think, is going to test the Panther Creek defense that we know has been pretty good all year. But I think I'm interested to see how the efficiency of this Hutchins team pairs against that kind of. I'm trying to think of like the right way to describe that Panther Creek defense from what we've seen, because they were pretty tenacious against Aubrey. Like they got after it. That's a good way to. They fly around. They get after the ball carrier.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's what we're going to be seeing is a lot of speed on the field on this one. I mean, you look at
That's a great. Yeah, I like that. That speed on the field is going to be.
Yeah, so like Jacob and Jaheim Cummings, their running backs are leading the charge, as well as Tomaje McMillan. I think, though, from my perspective, when looking at the Hutchins team coming in, outside, they haven't really impressed in terms of just box score numbers. And I'm talking about a close win over some bad teams like Fort Worth Southwest, not a great team. They only won 33-28. Then they only beat Fort Worth Northside 12-9. So I don't know if that was on field goals only. I haven't gone through the box score on that one, but I'm just, in seeing these quasi bad Fort Worth teams stick around to what's supposed to be a playoff bound team in Wilmer Hutchins, I'm not impressed. But then you look into their stats over here, and it's pretty solid. 10-1 ratio. That's what you want for any quarterback.
Yeah.
I think the golden number is maybe 5-1 is what you want. If you have 20 touchdowns, you only want 4 interceptions and stuff like that. Anything less than that, and you're kind of a suspect quarterback. So a 10-1 ratio is fantastic. So yeah, I think that's what I'm most interested in seeing is how the teams match up across each other. They're both going to be speed based. I think there's going to be a lot of big hits, especially of course as district play, and both teams coming off huge wins the last 2 weeks. I think that we're going to see a lot of riled up play, considering where things have been earlier in the season and then where they've gone the last couple of weeks. I know Wilmer Hutchins, has beaten its opponents 89-11 its last 2 weeks. Emerson is 83-13. So
Panther Creek.
Yes. Sorry. I was thinking they have only lost to Emerson, and it was a bad loss because I was reading it right here, and it was right there. Yeah. Panther Creek. Thank you.
They played that Emerson game since you brought it up. I mean, they played it fairly tight for a decent amount.
And then it got away from them.
Yeah, Emerson got away, ran away with it towards the end of.
Yeah. I think Braxton Roberts, having him is going to be the X factor.
I think you're right. I think this is a game I definitely think Panther Creek wins. I'm not trying to sit here and be like, oh, this is a Hutchins upset incoming. No, I don't think that's what it is. I just think that Hutchins is a solid team. Mm-hmm. This is a team I do think has the capability. I'm trying to remember everyone in this district. I got to pull that up real quick.
Branchview, North Dallas, Pinkston, Carter, Panther Creek. I said that weird. Hutchins and Salina.
Okay.
So of those 7, 5 of them are 4 or 3-1 and better.
Yeah. So I mean, I think this is a much bigger game now that we kind of I have all those teams in my head, and I'm actually looking at the standings of it. Right. I think this is a little bit bigger game for Hutchins than it is for Panther Creek, but it is a big game for both, just from a playoff perspective. Because from this point on, if you lose this game, any slip ups are going to be magnified by a lot. I mean, they're going to be magnified by probably like tenfold, just because, trying to get that fourth playoff spot is going to become a lot harder, because you imagine that Salina and Carter, just coming into the season, it's like, okay, those are kind of locked in playoff spots. So Panther Creek and Hutchins, it's like, you want to kind of lock those in for 3 and 4, but I don't want to pencil somebody in, because Pinkston's obviously 4-1 on the year.
Well, Hutchins just beat the last week.
Yeah, they beat them soundly. I mean,
exactly. So I can't really say that Hutchins or Pinkston is a contender.
And I don't want to. It's one of those things where I don't want to just pencil I don't want to pencil 4 teams in, because I think that's especially this early in the season in district play, because things can happen all of a sudden. We saw it with Marcus, where it's like, okay, this is very different now.
Yeah,
and everything could be a little bit of a flukish thing. I think it's hard to say that's a fluke when you get blown out by 40 points. I think that's saying a lot, especially to open district play. Now maybe Hutchins just found things clicking and they beat a decent Pinkston team by 40 points. So
yeah, for sure. So yeah, that'll be interesting to watch on Thursday night.
Any final predictions before we kind of move on? Any final predictions on this game?
I think it's going to be a easy win for Panther Creek. Again, because I have very much a Regency bias in terms of our teams. When we start talking about playoffs, and it becomes a DFW bias, because I'm here. I know more about the teams here than I do Houston or San Antonio. So I'm obviously going to kind of lean toward the DFW. Same thing with Denton County teams. I'm going to kind of lean this way, unless I just know that you're not as good as the other ones. But yeah, I think Braxton and Braxton Roberts and Christian Trickett probably have another monster day. Maybe not 200 yards passing or receiving and 4 touchdowns, but enough to cause concern for Hutchins's defense. And then the other players get involved, like Miles Meldrum and the running backs and everything. So I think we'll see. I think we'll see a healthy Panther Creek win, and then go to 2-0 in district and kind of march toward that matchup against Carter next week.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. I think maybe we see. I don't know what we'll see from Hutchins. Obviously, like you said, we have a bit of a Regency bias here, because this is a team we cover. And any of the teams we cover, I've said it plenty of times. I got a bias towards that, and I don't want to see the Denton teams win. Sure, especially because I love the 940. I'm from here right in Denton, like Denton town. Where we're at right now is basically it is my hometown. So Francisco Panther Creek, I see them winning pretty easily. I think maybe it could be a tight game, kind of like what we saw with Flower Mound and Louisville early, and then the other team just the talent asserts, they just assert themselves. So I think that's kind of where I lean, is maybe it's a little bit of a good game early, and then the depth, the talent, everything, they just pull away, and we end up seeing like a nice little 30-point plus win for the.
Ooh, I don't know if we're going to see 30-point. Just because of last year, it was a 7-point game. It's the same players, and they've had a year of experience and everything. Yes, we're talking about Braxton. So I hesitate to run to 30, but I don't think it'll be a 7-point game, and I don't think Hutchins will win. But I could be wrong. We've been wrong before. So. Yeah.
I mean, 30 is a large number. I kind of said that, and then now you pointed out, and it's like, you know what? That is a very hefty number.
Yeah.
So
it's pretty large.
I don't think about that sometimes when I throw numbers out there.
Going back to the Massey ratings, they do have Panther Creek favored by 25.5. So.
All right, so I'm taking the over.
You're gonna give.
You know what? I already said. So
Panther Creek's gonna cover. Do you want to talk about? Well, let's talk about the over under.
Thing to do.
What do you think the over is for this game?
Over under for this game? Wait, hold on. The total?
Yeah, the over under total points.
Yeah, okay, say total, not over under. No one says that.
That's exactly what you call it. It's the over under line.
No, you say total. No one says over under.
Okay, hold on. Everybody on watching, if you are watching, even after the fact, if you're watching, when you are on watching a football game, like
it's called the over. You take the over.
Thank you. See, I didn't even get the question out.
Hold on. No.
You already agreed.
You take the over or the under, but you refer to it as the total.
No, you don't. Whenever you are looking at watching a football game and you see the little scroll on the bottom, what does it say? It says O/U. right?
Yeah.
It's the over-under. That's what everybody calls it, the over-under.
It's called the total, but you put O/U on the ticker because this is a stupid conversation. I don't think you've ever gambled before.
Oh my God, you're wrong. But it's called the over/under. It's for the total amount of points. I don't disagree.
Total.
It's the over/under. Well, I'm going to put this on Twitter and see what people call it. I'm going to put it on my own personal one. I'm going to tag you in. I'm going to put it on the DenCo one. I'm going to tag you. We're going to see what the response is.
Over or the under, and then you call it a total.
No. Yeah, yes, it is the total, but it is not called. It is not referred to as the total. It's called the over/under.
All right. This is a stupid conversation.
I don't disagree, but you brought you came in here with your hot flaming Cheetos, and
it's not a hot take.
It's a hot take. That's the most incorrect hot take I've heard this week.
Okay, on to our next game, Louisville at Coppell. Otherwise, we're going to sit here and talk about this for the next 20 minutes.
That's probably not incorrect.
After we talked about music during a rain delay
that was a great conversation. We had nothing to talk about.
No, during a lightning delay, I know that we can talk about whatever for like a half hour.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure, I can get to the thick of anything if you really want to.
All right.
Louisville and Coppell. So we just saw Louisville last week. This is a battle of the top two teams, or not the top two teams, but two teams who won last week in district openers. 4-1 versus 5-0. I don't know how. Kind of like Hutchins, I don't know how I feel about Coppell's record at 5-0. Louisville, they had a tough loss on the road to Highland Park. Didn't know that was a fluke. Didn't know if that's just who they are. Just again, that cut below. But they've had a couple of bounce back wins, especially on the defensive side. Maybe a couple of points here and there, or scores here and there since that game against Highland Park. They're looking good right now. They're 13.5 point favorites. I don't know how much of a Buddy Eccles home field advantage there is. I know that sitting in the press area, it sucks because you're right into the sun. So that always is terrible. So I don't recommend that, but I'm fervently onto the side of Louisville being a better team in this one. And the 5-0 fighting Greg Teppers are, I think, buoyed by just close wins over subpar opponents.
So I'm not too far off here, kind of on your take. And look, the box. So, and I say this, that Coppell, the Cowboys, they've got some good play going for them at quarterback with Edward Griffin throwing at 75% completion percentage, only 765 yards and 10 touchdowns. And this is where I wish I had some more analytics and stuff to kind of know, are they not taking deep shots or anything? Because that's, for 77 attempts and stuff, it's not really a lot of yards. 10 yards per attempt. It's not a lot of yardage. And that to me is a little concerning when you're going to be playing Louisville, who's shown in the last couple of weeks that offense can take off in a heartbeat. And obviously now Louisville does have a little bit of a issue. They had a little bit of some issues in the red zone last week. Now that also was attributed to Flower Mound's defense. They would wake up in the red zone. They wouldn't, between the 20s, that Flower Mound defense was kind of, I don't know what they were doing, but then in the red zone, they were like, okay, we'll play football again, which was kind of weird to watch. But like I talked with Coach Basil about it, and he was pretty happy with his defense in the red zone, but they were just struggling to tackle prior to that, which was an odd phenomenon for me to see, to kind of watch on the field.
Yeah.
But enough of that.
It's that classic bend but don't break defense. So whatever. It's like you're just kind of getting gashed in between the 20s.
Yeah.
And then you see the end zone and you have to bow up and you want to keep as few points on the board as possible.
It just didn't work against that caliber team. And Louisville, you can't bend so often. And then that offense just was constantly off the field. It felt like for Flower Mound. So I think Flower Mound's a solid team, and they went out and they took care of Flower Mound. So I don't think that Coppell is that far above the Jags, to be honest.
I think
they're a good team. It's just they, like you pointed out with their schedule, they haven't taken care of anybody, and it's like they're 5-0, but have they really beaten anybody?
The most impressive win to me is Saxe, and that was to start the season at 44-41. Then they beat SGP, South Grand Prairie, by 10. and then had a dominant win against Plano West. Well, Plano, I mean, no offense, Wolves fans and whatnot, but the Plano schools are outside of East right now, who's 3-1 or 4-1. I'm not really worried about the Plano ISD schools in this district. So 55-7. I mean, that's handling business. Don't get me wrong. But I'm not impressed by anything. Yeah. If you're winning out on the road against SGP by, 14-21. Okay. Yeah. Now you got my attention. If you're playing Saxy and winning by 10 or so, yeah, that gets my attention. So I'm not.
I would point out with the Saxy real quick. I don't know. So Saxy seems to have maybe kind of course corrected a little bit, but those first 2 weeks they started off real slow because they lost 44-41 to Coppell, and then the following week got their doors blown off by Prosper, 49-13.
Yeah.
So I maybe Saxy just got off to a slow start. I think that's probably
but then again they're playing Lakeview Centennial, who's not good.
So
Rowlett is not great either.
Okay,
and then
so
Wiley East should have been better, but they only scored 20 against Wiley East. So yes, a little bit better recently, but you can't really.
I'm looking more at like that. Those first 2 weeks, like if like that 49-13 is kind of an indicator, like maybe Saxy which wasn't great when Coppell played. They just weren't. If they were
the
start
defenses
getting off
weren't
to a
there,
slow,
it didn't look like.
Yeah, and so to me, it's a little bit of an indicator of like, all right, so like that makes that win even a little bit less impressive. And maybe if they played Saxy a few weeks later, Saxy gets that win.
Yeah,
and we're looking at a 4-1 Coppell team, and we're not even as impressed. Maybe
Correct.
You're on my side of like maybe they are a little bit more equivalent to what the Jags are. Because the Jags lost. The only losses the Jags have are to really good teams, and they beat a Lake Highland team that's been pretty good.
And they beat Park, beat Louisville, who beat Flower Mound, so it becomes a circular transitive property.
So
you can't really do that though, but I mean,
it's the most.
But that's how the mind works, right?
That's how my brain works.
Well, that's how everybody's mind works. Like, well, this team beat that team, then they should beat this team. I mean, I sarcastically put it out there on Friday night. I said if the transitive property holds any kind of weight, Flower Mound should roll Louisville tonight. Didn't happen. I mean, I knew otherwise, but I thought, let's see what kind of attention this garners. Anywho, I would definitely, if I'm going to plot point where Coppell is, I think in the scale of Louisville to Flower Mound, I'm going to lean them more toward the Flower Mound side of things, I think. But who knows? I mean, this could be a close game, and we're wearing an egg on our face come Saturday morning. But I see Lewis being a better team just because of what we saw out of Heath Harrell. He was able to play that complementary quarterback football. They've never needed him to do the 400 yards and 6 touchdowns a game. He did something.
He was super efficient this Friday.
He was efficient.
I wouldn't say super efficient. Yeah,
he was effective.
I think he was efficient.
Well, he's about 56% completion percentage, which isn't great. He was effective, though. That's the thing.
He made the big plays, and I think that's to me what they need him to do is just make those big plays, man.
Yeah, for sure. Like the one we talked about, I think on Saturday is that that spin move that I think Odell taught him. The spin move at the line of scrimmage to throw across your body with a jump throw for a touchdown. I'm pretty sure Odell taught him, who was a world record passer at Louisville. Sarcasm included. So he was highly effective in what he did. And then also what was highly effective was the ground game with Byron. Now, he didn't have any touchdowns or anything like that, but how many times? I lost count maybe after like 12, 15 missed tackles after just like 3 or 4 runs where he just could not be taken down, and they had to gang tackle him just to push him out of bounds. So if he gets going the way that I feel like he can, like he did last year, and Ethan plays that complementary style of quarterbacking, this team is going to roll right through district play and be a team that gets down deep into the playoffs, which we kind of prognosticated before the season started. This has the potential to be a really good team. It just need all the parts to play together at once. So are we starting to see that? Maybe. But it's going to take more than just 1 week. But that knee-jerk reaction says yes, right?
Yeah, definitely. And since we're not necessarily going to be talking a whole lot about it, I just want to point out that the Flower Mound Marcus game, or Marcus versus Flower Mound game, also going on at the same time. So it is a big week for 6-6A. That I think you're just going to have a lot. we'll have a lot to talk about on Saturday morning at during our live show at 11 a.m.
Yep.
So feel free to join us then when we kind of break down everything, recap everything from the Thursday and Friday nights.
Yep.
Because 668, I think we're going to learn a ton, because it just felt like these first 2 weeks, there's just so much of the good teams, the teams that are going to be competing for that district title, competing for playoff spots, are all meeting head to head here early in the season. And then a little bit towards the end of the season, it's like the middle of the district road where it kind of, it's a little bit of a break.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the next big game in my mind that I keep sticking to is that season finale between Louisville and Hebron, and what kind of playoff implication that'll have. Will Louisville run the table? Will if they have a loss on their ledger somewhere, will they still be a D1 seed 1? Will they be a seed 2? Does that help buoy Hebron's chances into the playoffs, or does it force a 3-way tie? Who knows? This district could easily, outside of maybe the top 2 positions, be a bloodbath between 3 and maybe 6 or 7. So
yeah, and then that's why I think this week just feels bigger than I thought it would originally. Like, it just feel, especially because of that Marcus win last week over Hebron.
Yep.
Everything like that game really did throw a giant wrench into what I thought this district might be originally.
Yeah,
all right,
absolutely.
so we're going to take a quick break here and let you guys hear a quick message from our good old friend John.
Everything's bigger in Texas, especially Texas high school football. We're entering our 7th season with the DenCo Gridiron platform. We started this 7 years ago right across the street at West Oak Coffee Bar. Just an idea to bring content directly wherever you are. Be a part of the community. Join us. Help our contributors to tell the stories each and every Friday night throughout the season. Talking your town, your team.
I'm still going to throw it on socials because I want you to get ratioed so hard into being wrong and everything. So, we got one more game to talk about, and then we have a special guest joining us to talk about our DenCo Gridiron game of the week, but we'll get into that in a minute. Last game that we kind of want to talk about, you touched on it briefly just before this one, was Marcus and Flower Mound. That's going to be, Marcus and Flower Mound. That's going to be an interesting one just because, again, it's the Battle of the Mound. A lot of interesting intersecting rivalry talk there. So, and we'll see how it helps or doesn't help one team or the other in terms of standings and everything. Which is, again, last week Marcus winning surprises a lot of people. Maybe you chalked up Flower Mound to already having an 0-1 record, but Marcus being 1-0 completely changes the narrative of that game. The other game we want to talk about is Aubrey versus Gainesville. Now, if you were to look at one entity, they were to say this is a 2-point spread. If you were to look at another, Massey Ratings, they would say this is a 28-point spread. But both teams won last week. Aubrey gets off the mat and gets their first win of the year. This is the first meeting since 2011 that it will be in Gainesville. The last 2 times, which was last year and the year before that, Aubrey had won, I think, by an average of 64-6 or something stupid like that. And it hasn't been a close contest the last 2 years. But we also have, reason to believe that Gainesville was a lot better than they had been in years past. I mean, they did get into the area round of the playoffs last year, beating Sunnyvale and then losing to Gilmer. Aubrey, we don't know exactly how good they are. They beat up a very bad Bridgeport team, but how much stock are we putting into that, and do we need to see them be tested maybe a couple more times, including this game, to really know where they are as a team?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that stands out to me is we saw Aubrey play in person, and man, that they just don't get the ball to their playmakers. I talked about it in that recap show that week. It was frustrating watching the kind of wing tee offense. It felt like it just didn't fit the players that they had. They weren't really doing a lot to get the balls to guys like that. Yeah, they could hand the ball off to Emerson Cagle, Dylan Brooks, and some of these other guys on that team. It's just it just wasn't enough to me. Like, I mean, Tyler Brown, I think, is the guy I'm thinking of that just was a little bit shorter and really explosive. Like, they had some really good athletes out there. It just, you need to get the ball to those guys in space, and it wasn't really happening because you're just pitching the ball to them and handing it off. And it's not fit for it wasn't fitting for them. And I'm curious, I don't know what Gainesville's defense is like. It could be a Panther Creek situation where this defense might be fast. And if that's the case, it could be a long day for Aubrey. In Gainesville, they played a real tight game with Vernon, who's 5-0 right now and is kind of beating the snot out of most of the guys they played.
Yeah, for sure. Aubrey's offense isn't one that you can really force a huge comeback.
That's the part that's
unless you're getting
worrisome.
Huge chunk plays in that comeback. I mean, if you're down and you're going out of the slot T, wing T, whatever offense that they're running, it's tough.
They had one chunk play in that Panther Creek game that I can recall, and it was about a 20-yard play action pass. And they run the same. I mean, they kind of run the same play action pass if they need to throw the ball. And so I think if this is a game where Gainesville gets out to any kind of lead, you start to worry. Aubrey has to play from a lead in this game. I think if they're playing from behind, whether it's unless it's 3 points, I think then in that case you can kind of work with that. But 7 points or more, it's really worrisome.
Yeah, for sure. So it'll be interesting to see how that transpires over in Leopard Stadium up there in Gainesville. I'm kind of looking at Dylan Brooks. Can he have another big game like he did last week? He only had 4 carries, but had 115 yards and a touchdown over Bridgeport, and he probably got some rest the rest of the way because it was a blowout. And can the defense stop Gainesville? I can't remember what kind of offense they run. I think it's pretty standard high school offense over in Gainesville. But we'll see. I still think Aubrey is the better team. I'm putting a lot of that stock in what's happened the last 2 years, but I'm also kind of glossing over the fact of how poorly Aubrey had played prior to last week as well. So we'll see. So that's going to be an interesting one over there in 5-4A Division 2 as, we try to shake out those standings. All right, man.
All right, folks. This week, we got a good one for you. I'm excited for it. I've been looking forward to this game for, I think, about 3 weeks. I've had this on my calendar. Did you hit me?
Oh. Let's do it again. Fire that again.
I don't know why it's muted, but you saw the images.
I don't know why it's muted either, man.
I don't know what the deal is. That was the most pathetic drop.
Oh man, all
time.
So we alluded to it. On the phone with us from Texas Private School Media is Wes Tollison. Wes, can you hear us?
Yes, sir. I can. Can you hear me?
Absolutely. Hey, we appreciate you joining us for this game, a really pivotal game in our area, as we have Argyle Liberty Christian against Frisco Legacy Christian. Again, thanks for hopping on with us, and we'll start with Liberty. Wes, you guys are pretty passionate about covering private school teams in the state. What is Liberty Christian just on a warpath to make up from last year's disappointing finish?
They absolutely are. Last year, Liberty started super strong, and they looked like far and away the favorite to win the Division II title. And then they kind of fell off towards the end of the year. And I think, familiar name, Coach Jason Witten is really, really, laying into these guys and like, listen, we've started strong, but we cannot take our foot off the gas. And I think you're really seeing that with these just dominating wins thus far in the season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think scoring 40 some odd points a game, holding teams to 7. So it's about like a 33, 34 point scoring margin per game. And they're just, taking it to everybody, including our own Prestonwood in this area as well to start the season. From your perspective, just kind of maybe looking at numbers and feedback that you've heard through other reporters or your own feedback, who stood out the most to you so far this year for Liberty?
Yeah, so it all starts with the class of 25 athlete, Brady Janusek. The junior is an Oklahoma baseball commit, actually, and in my opinion, he is a state MVP candidate. As many Division I names as Liberty has in their roster, Brady Janusek, to me, is far and away the best. He is a two-way player, and he just, in terms of their offense, he's the star. I mean, whenever he gets the ball, he's an immediate threat to score. And whenever we covered that win against Prestonwood, he in large part is why they won. It's just he's so hard to bring down with the ball in his hands. He's an elite athlete. I'm kind of sad that he's choosing the baseball route because I think he is definitely a Division I football player as well.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think I remember watching a bunch of the clips from that week 1 tilt against Prestonwood, and I think that was the overarching theme is how much of an impact on both sides of the ball, especially as a linebacker or a tweener safety that he had in that game against a pretty good offense in Prestonwood. And of course, they're trying to figure themselves out with having new talent in the backfield, but still nothing to really thumb your nose at. So before we flip over to Legacy, last question is: Do you think that anything less than a state title for Liberty is a failure this season?
It's a high bar to set, and it's a little harsh for me to say, but I would say yes. Going into the season, it was very tough for us to pick whether Argyle Liberty or Fort Worth All Saints was going to be the title favorite, as the North is a lot stronger than the South. In the South you have Austin Regents, Fort Bend Christian that'll make a challenge. Fort Bend's a little down this year, but I think it's state championship or bust for Liberty, especially seeing all the talent as well as they're doing right now. In my opinion, the level this team's playing at, you have to go out and win a state title this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and kind of from a homer side of things, I really would have wanted to see Jacob Vaughn last year finish that off the way they turned it around in year 2 from in Witten's tenure. So selfishly, I wanted him to have a good season, and I hope this team can kind of finish off what they started last year. Okay, so moving over to Legacy, and this is, I think, the biggest surprise in the area, at least for me personally. Legacy struggled a lot last year, and they're off to a 5-0 start. What has been the biggest difference that you've seen this year?
Yeah, it's a fantastic turnaround with the first-year head coach Doug Hicks at the helm. Legacy, I've got I'm more familiar with Legacy because I graduated from a school called Grace Community in Tyler.
Yes, sir.
And Grace is TAPS Division II, District 2, the same district that Legacy is. So I pay very close attention to District 2. And the fact of the matter is District 2, the district that Legacy plays in, is significantly less talent-laden than District 1. However, that hasn't come to play yet because they're not playing District 2 teams yet. They've had great wins over Oak Ridge, Cistercian, St. Mark's, Katy St. John's, etc. And I think that all starts with wide receiver, strong safety Ryan Wood. He is Legacy's best offensive and defensive player. And if they're going to compete with a star-studded Liberty team, Ryan Wood's going to have to come out of the gates early. They're going to have to find ways to get him the ball. And if Liberty locks onto him and can find a way to shut him down, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see if they can get creative and find other guys to get the ball to.
Yeah, that's a good point. On the defensive side of things, I'm kind of intrigued by this. I think it's a sophomore, Garrett Sims, who's kind of come up out of nowhere to lead the team twice in tackles and pressures and tackles for loss. Same thing on the other side is, while they do have Ryan Wood, Ian Polt has had a phenomenal junior year, first year as a starter, sitting behind Trotter last year. And then you have the weapons like Kyle Morgan that he can toss the ball to as well. So I think Legacy, to me, from what I'm seeing, is a lot more balanced, both on defense and offense than last year's squad. And I think that's a testament to maybe Hicks's style. I'm not familiar with what he brings to the program. I know Trotter's now over at Highland Park as an offensive assistant or something. So, I think that's a valid point, but I do think Legacy has a lot more options available than I think than this last year's version of this game. Last question about Legacy that I have for you is, regardless of the outcome of this week, and you mentioned that they haven't really gotten into their own kind of play, and you follow Legacy because of Tyler Grace. Is this a team that can win the district?
Yeah, it's incredibly interesting to me. So I'll give some context to start. There's two main guys in the private school space. There's us, and then there's the Texas private school football guy. The football guy ranked Legacy to win that district, and I think Grapevine Faith in second and Grace in third. We picked Grace to win, Grapevine Faith in second, and Legacy in third. It's a 3-horse race right now. I think all three of those teams are neck and neck. I can't extrapolate a ton from Grace and Legacy's non-district schedule just to be quite honest, the teams aren't of great quality, and we're going to have to get in the district and get some transitive property going to see how they stack up. Long story short, I think Legacy has a great chance to win this district. I think they have as good of a chance as good teams like Grace Community and Grapevine Faith. And it's going to come down to, a lot of these teams are very similar talent-wise, who comes out and executes the game plan on a night in and night out basis. And it's going to be really fun to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just stunned at the turnaround from last year to this year in year one for Hicks. All right, so we've talked about the teams. Now let's talk about the game real quick. What should fans be looking for in this year's matchup, and should they put any stock into last year's results?
What should Legacy be looking for?
Both. So we're talking about just the game in general. So what should fans of this game be looking for both teams or either team, and then how much stock should last year's matchup hold?
I think in terms of stock from last year, I don't think a lot. Like you mentioned, it's a completely different Legacy team. They've made a great turnaround. I don't think you're going to see a similar game plan. I think Hicks has brought a new style, and I think you can throw a lot of last year's results out of the window. That being said, I think it's going to come down to can Legacy's secondary stop Liberty's passing attack. I think this Liberty air raid, if you can call it that, is one of the most impressive quarterback and receiving cores that I have ever seen cover private school. You've got quarterback Cole Wellover, the UConn commit, slinging it. He's 6'6". He's everything you want in a quarterback prospect. And then you add, state champion in the 100 meters, Quentin Brown, Brady Janisek, as I mentioned, and then also Michael Stump, who I think is criminally underrated. If he's not on this Liberty team, he is a number one receiver anywhere else he goes. Can Legacy's secondary, starting with Ryan Wood, stop that? It's an interesting question, and I can't really answer that until we cover the game on Friday. We'll actually have one of our analysts, Ryan Schroeder, who graduated from Legacy, covering that. So I'm incredibly excited to see how far this Legacy resurgence has come.
Yeah, for sure. That kind of leads me into the last question I have for you. So if you look at metrics that are out there on whether it's Dave Campbell's Texas Football or Massey ratings or any of the other computer ranking type entities, they all have Legacy as huge underdogs in this game again. Do you feel the same way? Or you think that's going to be closer? What's your, I guess, your prediction for the game?
Yeah, that's funny you mentioned Massey ratings, because that's the metric that we use to get spreads for the game. A lot of the people that we cover think that we make these spreads, so we get yelled at a lot when we're wrong, which is it's a funny misconception. But that being said, yeah, Massey ratings has Liberty's a 35.5 point favorite in this game. I'm going to be honest. I think that Liberty wins this game by roughly 40 points. Legacy is much improved from last year, and this isn't a slight against Legacy. It's a testament to how good Liberty Christian is. They have at least 10 Division I prospects on their roster, and I just think it's too stark of a talent differential. Like I said, it's no condemnation on Legacy's team. They will be great in their district. Liberty is just on another level than any other private school this year.
I can't say I disagree. We started with Cole Welliver, the transfer from Marcus. Then you mentioned Janisek, sorry, Stump, Quentin Brown. I mean, it's a loaded roster. That's where I think last year we got hung up on just disappointment, because it was a loaded team last year too, and they just the wheels fell off in that first round against All Saints. So I think we're going to see a lopsided win, but I would be pleasantly surprised if I will be happily surprised. Let me phrase it that way. If Legacy can keep it within that spread that Massey rating has.
Absolutely. And the fun part is Legacy will inevitably be within 10 points in this game, and we'll both get yelled at for making the wrong prediction.
Oh, yeah.
That's the fun part of doing
Absolutely.
This.
Hey, Wes, we appreciate your time this afternoon and talking Argyle Liberty Christian versus Frisco Legacy. You can find them at TXPS, or is it what's the handle? I know you have your own handle. I know Texas Private School has its own handle. Where can people follow you?
Yes, sir. You can find us at TXPS Media on Instagram and on Twitter. Yeah, that's where we are. All
right. Hey, Wes, appreciate your time this afternoon, and we'll if we get credential granted, we'll see you out there on Friday.
Absolutely. I appreciate the time, guys.
Absolutely. Have a good one.
You too.
All right, that was Wes Tollison from Texas Private School Media. Yeah, he mentioned the other Texas private media guy or whatever. I reached out to him too, but he was unavailable. So we appreciate Wes and that entity for being able to talk with us today about this game. I think it's a huge game, regardless of what the outcome might end up being. I think it's a good bar setter for Legacy, as well as to see just how damn good Liberty is.
Yeah, I think he really summed it up well. This is and I think you as well. It's how good is Legacy, how great is this Liberty Christian team, and how far has this Legacy team really come? Because if it's a close game for 4 quarters, all right, Legacy, like, you're part of this conversation now here when we get into the playoffs of how deep are you going to go?
Mm-hmm.
And then if Liberty just kind of smokes Legacy, it's like, oh, all right.
Yeah, this is what it was.
It's starting to feel like a 1-horse race
for sure.
So
yeah, and the interesting thing in there is that they wouldn't meet again until potentially the playoffs. Mm-hmm. So that would be a deep run if both teams finish atop the district. And if let's say Legacy falls to 4th, then they would meet in the first round like they did with Coram Dio last year. So all right, man. Hey, we did it.
Made it all the way.
We're going to make it all the way. I'm trying to get out of here soon. I'm rolling solo as a parent this week.
That sounds fun.
No. And so I got to get home before kiddo gets home from school. So going to wrap it up really abruptly. We appreciate your time.
Well, that means it's cue the music time. Abrupt. Later, guys.
Oh my God.